From the moment he stepped into his glass-walled office every morning, he was untouchable, a figure of power, precision, and command. His employees respected him, feared him, and obeyed him. The business pages called him ruthless, a self-made genius who turned his father's mountain of debt into a global empire. In just over a decade, Damien had built Hale Enterprises into a name that dictated markets. Luxury hotels, tech firms, and gleaming towers carried his name. And yet, Damien trusted no one. Not when it came to friendship. Certainly not when it came to love. At 34, he had seen the world's masks too often. He had watched women slip into his life with sparkling eyes and soft words, only for their affection to crumble into demands, diamonds, penthouses, vacations on private islands. He had endured the sting of betrayal when one woman sold private photos to tabloids. Another had staged a scandal to trap him into marriage. He never forgot the bitterness of watching someone he thought cared for him laugh on television about breaking the heart of a billionaire. Since then, Damien Hale had made a rule for himself. Women who looked too perfect, who dressed like they belonged on red carpets, who fluttered their lashes too easily, they were off limits. He would never be used again. And for years, it worked. He lived his life with discipline, controlling every detail. He filled his calendar with work, avoided unnecessary parties, and kept women at arm's length. But fate does not care for rules. One cold November evening, Damien found himself restless. He had spent 12 straight hours buried in contracts and numbers, his mind buzzing with deals and expansions. His penthouse, perched above Manhattan's glowing skyline, felt suffocating despite its beauty. He didn't want to drink, didn't want to sleep, didn't want another business call. So he pulled on a dark coat, a cap to shadow his face, and left the safety of his world. Alone. The rain had begun to fall, fine needles misting the air. Damien welcomed it. Few people looked at a man in plain clothes, his expensive features hidden beneath the brim of a cap. For once, he was anonymous. He walked aimlessly until a small café caught his eye. Its windows glowed warmly against the storm. Inside, a young woman sat hunched over a stroller, her shoulders tight with exhaustion. The baby inside wailed, its tiny fists flailing. Something about the scene made Damien pause at the doorway. The woman couldn't have been more than mid-20s. She wore a sweater 2 sizes too large, her jeans faded from wear, her hair pulled into a messy bun with strands falling loose. Her face was beautiful, but not in the polished, painted way he was used to. Her beauty was raw, tired, human. Her lips moved as she whispered to the child, her voice soothing though her own eyes glistened red, as if she'd been crying. The baby's cries grew louder. The woman rocked the stroller desperately, glancing around as though searching for an answer she couldn't afford. Damien's instincts told him to turn away. This wasn't his world, wasn't his problem. He had taught himself not to care about strangers, caring meant vulnerability. But his feet betrayed him. He stepped inside. The bell above the door chimed. She looked up sharply, embarrassment flashing in her eyes. She must have thought he was judging her, another stranger irritated by the cries of a baby. He surprised himself when he spoke. "Do you need help?" Her eyes widened. "No, I mean," her voice cracked. "Yes, but there's nothing you can do." He tilted his head. "What's wrong?" She hesitated, her jaw tightening. Then, with the weary honesty of someone too tired to pretend, she whispered, "She's hungry. And I don't have formula. My shift ended late, and I missed the store." Damien looked at the baby, then back at her. The child's cries pierced his chest in a way he hadn't expected. "Where do you buy it?" he asked simply. Suspicion flickered across her face. "Why?" "Because she needs it." The woman's lips pressed into a line. "Look, I'm not asking for charity. We'll manage until tomorrow." He almost smiled at her stubbornness. "I'm not offering charity. I'm offering food for a hungry baby. Tell me where." Her eyes searched his, as if trying to read his intentions. Finally, she sighed. "The corner store. But it's closed now." Without another word, Damien turned and left. The rain came harder as he strode down the block. Within minutes, he found a late-night pharmacy. He didn't just buy one can of formula, he bought several, along with diapers, wipes, and even a small pink blanket that caught his eye. When he returned, soaked from the rain, she looked up in shock as he dropped the bags gently beside the stroller. Her mouth fell open. "You didn't." "I did." His voice was calm, matter of fact. Her hands trembled as she pulled out the formula. Relief washed over her face, followed quickly by disbelief. Why would you do this? Because she needed it, Damien said, nodding toward the baby. Her eyes filled with tears. Thank you, I don't even know your name. Damien. He extended his hand. She hesitated, then shook it softly. Elena. He glanced at the baby, now content and quiet with a bottle in her tiny hands. And her, Ava, Elena said, her voice softening. She's 8 months. For reasons he couldn't explain, Damien felt a warmth spread in his chest at the sight of the child, so small and innocent, completely unaware of the storm around her. Elena, meanwhile, studied him carefully. She noticed his expensive coat, his confident posture, the quiet authority in his voice. He wasn't an ordinary man, she realized, but she couldn't place him. And Damien, accustomed to women sizing him up for wealth or status, realized Elena wasn't. She looked at him with a mix of wariness and gratitude, but no calculation. It was disarming. Over the next hour, they talked. He learned she worked part-time at the café, struggling to cover rent in a small, damp apartment. Her parents had disowned her when she refused to give up Ava. The baby's father had vanished long before she was born. I don't need anyone's pity, Elena said fiercely. I just want to give her a good life. Even if it means I go without. Damien admired the fire in her. Most people in her position would have begged for help, played the victim. She stood firm, even as exhaustion weighed on her shoulders. When it grew late, he offered to walk her home. She declined at first, but the storm was harsh, and the streets unfriendly. Finally, she allowed it. They walked in silence through the rain, Damien pushing the stroller while Elena carried the bags. He had never felt so grounded, so far from the polished dinners and sterile boardrooms of his life. When they reached her worn-down building, Elena paused. Thank you, for everything, but you don't have to come back. Really, I know, Damien said quietly. Their eyes met in the dim light of the doorway. She didn't know who he was. Didn't care about his money. She only cared about her daughter. For the first time in years, Damien felt something stir inside him that wasn't suspicion or control. It was longing, and in that moment, though he didn't yet realize it, the billionaire who trusted no one had already lost his heart to a poor girl with a baby. Damien Hale had always believed control was the secret to survival. Control over his empire, his image, and most importantly, his heart. Yet with Elena and her little girl, control slipped through his fingers like water. Weeks passed since the night he met them in the cafe. He told himself he returned only to check on the baby, but each visit stretched longer. He watched Elena juggle trays at work while whispering gentle words to Ava, watched her smile through exhaustion, and found himself unwilling to leave. For the first time in years, Damien wanted to be just a man. Not a billionaire, not a headline. Just a man who could sit at a table with a woman who looked at him without calculation. And Elena looked at him differently than anyone ever had. One evening, as winter winds rattled the cafe windows, Damien arrived to find Elena on break, sitting in the corner with Ava bouncing on her knee. The child squealed when she saw him, reaching out chubby arms. She likes you, Elena said, half amused, half suspicious. I like her too, Damien admitted, settling into the seat across from them. She's got better taste than most adults I know. Elena laughed softly, the sound pulling at something deep inside him. But then her expression turned wary. Damien, why do you keep coming here? To us, he hesitated. He had never been good with vulnerability. In his world, showing weakness was blood in the water. But her eyes, tired, honest, demanded truth. Because when I'm with you, he said slowly, I don't feel like a prize to be hunted. You don't want anything from me. Her eyes softened, but she shook her head. You don't know that. Maybe I'm just pretending. I would know, Damien replied firmly. Silence stretched between them, broken only by Ava's happy babbles. Finally, Elena whispered, I don't trust men. Not after everything. Damien leaned forward. Then let me earn it. No rush, no expectations. Just let me be here. Elena searched his face, as if waiting for the catch. But there was none. And so, he became part of their lives. He walked them home after Elena's shifts, sometimes carrying Ava while Elena carried groceries. He repaired her broken heater one freezing night without being asked. He even learned to change a diaper, awkwardly, clumsily, but determinedly, earning Ava's delighted squeals. It was a strange new rhythm for Damien. He had spent years surrounded by marble floors and glass towers, guarded by security and assistants. Now he found more happiness in a cramped apartment filled with baby toys than in all the penthouses he owned. Elena, however, remained cautious. She saw how comfortable he was with expensive things, a watch he forgot to take off, the quality of his shoes. He never explained, and she never asked. She told herself it didn't matter. But part of her feared that he belonged to a world she could never enter. Her fears came true sooner than she expected. One morning, Elena arrived at the cafe to find a glossy magazine left behind on a table. Across its cover was Damien's face, sharp, commanding, unmistakable. The headline screamed, "Billionaire Damien Hale expands global empire." The floor seemed to tilt beneath her. She stared at the image, at the man she thought she knew. Damien, the man who walked her home in the rain, who bought formula for her daughter, who held Ava with such tenderness. But he wasn't just Damien. He was Damien Hale, billionaire, untouchable, the customers whispered, pointing between the magazine and the man who had been sitting in their cafe almost every evening. By the time Damien walked in, Elena's hands shook with fury and betrayal. "You lied," she said before he could speak. He froze. "Elena, you let me think you were just some guy. Some normal man who understood what it's like to struggle. But you're a billionaire." Her voice cracked. "Do you have any idea what that feels like? To open up to you, to trust you, when you've been hiding this?" Damien's jaw tightened. "I never lied. I just didn't tell you." "Same thing." Her eyes burned. "Do you know what I've been through? Men with promises, with charm, who only leave me broken. And now you." Her breath caught. "I thought you were different." Damien stepped closer, his expression raw. "I am different. Yes, I have money. Too much of it, but that's not who I am. That's why I didn't tell you. Because the moment people know, they stop seeing me. They only see the money. And you," his voice cracked. "You were the first person in years who saw me." Her heart twisted, but the walls she had built were strong. "You should have trusted me enough to tell me." "Elena," he whispered, "trust doesn't come easily to either of us. You don't trust men, and I don't trust women. But I'm trying. For you. For Ava." At the sound of her daughter's name, Elena faltered. Ava, oblivious to the tension, reached out from her stroller with a happy squeal. Da. The word wasn't meant, not really, but it struck like lightning. Damien's expression softened, torn wide open as the baby wriggled toward him. He lifted her into his arms, and she nestled against his chest, content. Elena's vision blurred with tears. Ava had never taken to anyone so quickly. Still, she shook her head. "I don't want to be someone's charity case, Damien. I won't let my daughter grow up thinking we were just someone you pitied." Damien cupped her face gently, his thumb brushing away a tear. His voice trembled. "You're not charity. You're the reason I wake up in the morning and want more than meetings and money. You and Ava are the only real thing in my life. I don't want to save you, Elena. I want to love you." Her breath caught. The words she had longed to hear and feared most hung heavy in the air. She wanted to believe him. God, she wanted to. But could she trust again? Could she risk her heart, and Ava's, on a man who lived in a world so far from hers? Her silence must have broken him, because Damien stepped back, pain flickering in his eyes. "I'll give you space. But know this, I don't want anyone else. Only you, only Ava." He left before she could answer. The days that followed were torment. Elena tried to convince herself she was better off without him. He belonged to skyscrapers and headlines, while she belonged to small apartments and survival. But Ava's cries at night, reaching for the man who used to tuck her in, shredded Elena's resolve. And in her quiet moments, she admitted the truth. Damien hadn't once treated her like charity. He had never looked down on her. He had only looked at her, as if she mattered. As if she was enough. One evening, unable to fight it anymore, Elena bundled Ava in her stroller and walked to Hale Tower, the skyscraper where Damien's empire lived. Security eyed her warily until Damien himself appeared in the lobby. The moment he saw her, his mask of control cracked. "Elena," she swallowed hard, "you should have told me the truth. But I was wrong too. I kept pushing you away because I was afraid. Afraid of being hurt again. Afraid of letting someone into Ava's life." Her voice broke. "But you already are in her life. She misses you. And so do I." Damien crossed the marble floor in 3 strides. His hands framed her face, his eyes burning with hope and fear. "Are you saying?" She nodded, tears spilling freely. "I'm saying yes. Yes to trying. Yes to trusting. Yes to us." A sob escaped her throat as his lips met hers, fierce and desperate. Ava squealed happily between them, clapping her tiny hands as though blessing their union. For the first time in years, Damien Hale, the billionaire who trusted no one, felt whole. Not because of wealth, not because of power, but because a poor girl with a baby had given him the only thing money could never buy, love.